الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah and by asking Allah to exalt the mention and grant peace to our messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to his family and to his companions. Insha'Allah ta'ala, this afternoon, the brothers at City Mosque here in Preston, may Allah Azza wa Jal bless them and reward them, grant them goodness. They asked me to speak about homeschooling, some of my experiences, and also some of the practical aspects of it and some of the maybe difficulties. And I think we've approached some topics like this before, but inshallah ta'ala, if there is some repetition, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. We are going to repeat, and repeating benefits the believers. There is nothing harmful in it, inshallah ta'ala. So let me start with a question. Maybe before this question we should start, and we should ask about what homeschooling actually is. Because homeschooling is something that has a pretty broad scope. Some people might say it means replacing the normal education system and your normal schooling system with something that you do from home. But actually it's even bigger than that. It's even broader than that. Even for a person, for example, to just take responsibility, more responsibility for their children's education, even if their children are still going to school, maybe weekend classes, or maybe some extra tuition at home, or even a parent who he decides to take some of that responsibility and to take a lead on it and take responsibility for it. All of this can come under a type of homeschooling. So I don't want people just to think that homeschooling, the only thing it means is you don't go to school at all and the children stay all day at home. The children could learn as a small group. Could be like a couple of friends or neighbors who, their children came together to learn. But anything that is outside of the normal schooling system and is led by, the responsibility for it falls with the parents, this is all a kind of homeschooling. Even if it is Islamic education or if it is the worldly sciences. I don't like to call them secular. I don't like this word secular. Because the word secular gives you the idea that these sciences, they are against religion or they are separate from religion. But actually, they're just worldly. They are ulum ad-dunya or al-ulum ad-dunyawiyya. They're the worldly sciences, the sciences that relate to ظاهر الحياة الدنيا, the apparent nature of this world. So as I said, I don't want everyone just to think that homeschooling means your child doesn't go to school ever, they don't leave the house, that is it. That's part of it, but any time when you are replacing something from the standard schooling system that everybody goes through, and you're replacing it with some part which is being led by the parents, all of this comes under homeschooling. So why should a parent, a Muslim parent, consider homeschooling? You are responsible for your children's education, and they are your greatest investment. The Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is a shepherd, أو كما قال, and every one of you will be asked about their flock. So every one of you is a shepherd, every one of you will be asked. So now, where is the responsibility? Does the responsibility lie with the teacher in the classroom? It doesn't. The responsibility lies with The parent, the father and the mother, both of them are mas'oolun an ra'iyatih, required and responsible for their children. Your children are your greatest investment. إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث. When the son of Adam dies, all of their deeds cease except three. And what is one of them? وَوَلَدٍ صَالِحٍ يَدْعُو لَهُ. A righteous child that makes dua for you. A righteous child who makes dua for you. So this is an investment. When you die, your children stay behind and they benefit you by Allah's permission by making dua for you and by being righteous. So this is a very clear benefit in taking responsibility for their education. There are a lot of dangers in the regular school system. Now, I'm not saying everybody is going to leave school. That's not practical for everybody. But there are a lot of dangers. Sometimes those dangers come in the curriculum. The curriculum contains things that we as Muslims we do not find it to be acceptable. And I'm not just talking about, for example, al-fahisha, like immorality, but worse than that, shirk, making a partner with Allah, things that go against al-kufr, that go against what Allah Azza wa Jal told us in the Quran. Those things are present in the curriculum. They try to pass those on to children. And even if somebody teaches you mathematics or engineering, or somebody teaches you science, or somebody teaches you biology, but ultimately you're going to see some of that teacher's personality, the tarbiyah of the teacher, right? Does that make sense? The tarbiyah, the way they raise people, you're going to see that come into the children. And if that teacher, I'm not even saying non-Muslim, teacher could be Muslim, but not practicing, not upon the Quran and Sunnah, for example, or not with the same values and manners that we have, and those get passed on to your children as well. Even if the teacher is a good teacher, could it not be that you instead want to be that teacher yourself? Yani you want your children to take from you your wisdom and manners and behavior and your habits and etiquettes and culture, and maybe you don't want them to take that from the teacher, even if the teacher is good. The students, even if the teacher is amazing, and this is example in Islamic school, you could have an excellent curriculum, an excellent environment, excellent teachers, but you still have students, and those students are not all on one level. So some of those students will be doing bad things, and some of that rubs off on your children. Now someone might watch this and say, yeah, but that's life, right? Welcome to life, and you will surround yourself with bad people. Like, we have a qaida, a principle in Islam, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Have as much taqwa of Allah as you can. So if you're able to take your children away from that negative influence for even a day, or even a year, or even 2 years, or even 3 years, it's better than saying, well, what can I do? Tomorrow they will go to work. And that's a strange way of thinking. It's a wrong way of thinking that we have, where we say, oh, well, tomorrow my child is going to go to work anyway, they're going to mix with people anyway, they're going to live with this anyway, they're going to come across these people, so I may as well leave them there now. It's not like that. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. If you can do something to help your children now, do it, even if it's for a day, even if it's for a week, or a month, or a year, or 2 years, or 3 years. You did something for your children, at least you can do something. Perhaps by that, Allah will safeguard them from what is to come. There is also issues of bullying. And I'm in touch with a lot of Islamic schools, and I honestly believe that even in Islamic schools, there are issues of bullying, and bullying is a really hard thing to deal with. I'll be honest. I know how I would like to deal with bullying, but then that's not necessarily the right solution, in the sense that, personally, I think there's only one way to deal with a bully. But that is maybe, in the end of the day, you find the bully is sitting in the school and your child got expelled. And are we really going to teach to our kids, that's the only way to deal with the issue? It's hard, when people go through it, it's very, very hard. And we had some really horrific cases of really, good kids who got themselves into great, great trouble, self-harm, and, attempted suicide and many things because of this. Now, I'm not saying that, again, that this is the only solution, but I'm saying that, is it not worth considering taking your child out of that school for a while to develop in them the characteristics that you want? Shaja'ah, bravery, and izzatun nafs, having a dignity in yourself, and being someone who has some ability to carry yourself. So when these people, they try to cause you trouble, you can be, and you can deal with the issue. I really do believe that if the solution to bullying is not, physical violence, then maybe the only solution is, in some cases, to give the child a break from that environment. Some people will say no, but I've seen what schools do, and to be quite frank, they don't do much at all. They barely if they even do anything at all. And they talk, we have an anti-bully policy and we have a proper system, but in reality, I don't see it working. Reality, I'm not talking about ليس بأمانيكم ولا أماني أهل الكتاب. I'm not talking about in your dreams. In reality, I don't see it working. Peer pressure. We had kids, good kids, nice young kids come into classes and things like that, who got into drugs, who got into other things because of peer pressure. Around Muslim kids, I'm not even talking about non-Muslim kids. Putting pressure on them. And he put in a lot of pressure on them, and just try it, come on, one time, it's not going to hurt. Yeah, we have to deal with that. It's not, again, I'm not saying that your child will never have pressure if you take them out of school, but if you can do something to help your child today and prepare them for the future, is that not better than leaving them in that situation? Not being able to practice Islam properly. How many times do we see young people say they can't pray? I'm talking about people whose parents pray 5 times a day. In the holidays, they pray 5 times a day. But at school, especially in the winter, when there's a short gap between the prayer, they don't pray Dhuhr, they don't pray Asr, sometimes they don't pray Maghrib. Do we really want our children to go through 15 years of their life not praying Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib? Some of them have reached Sin al-Bulugh. They became adults. And somebody could become an adult at 12, 13, 14, 15. And they're going day after day after day not praying the prayers on time. The young girl who's not able to wear the hijab. Again, I believe there are solutions in the school, talking to the school and helping them out and all that. I'm with that. But if you could take that girl out and give her an environment where she can learn to practice Islam properly and be strong, isn't that better than leaving her in that situation where if she wears a hijab, it is just a khimar, it's just something to cover her hair, that's it. How many times you see she comes with proper abaya and hijab and everything properly covered? Very rarely. Free mixing, boys and girls together. Even at a young age, I used to be surprised when our mashayikh used to say that you should stop boys and girls learning together even at a very young age. We used to say, what's the harm? What's the harm, they're young. But now what do we see? Children are experiencing these kind of problems younger and younger. The age is getting younger and younger. Children are aware of things that are very, adult topics, younger and younger. And we're also seeing that habits form at a young age. And even if someone said, I'm going to homeschool my child, and even at 15, I'm going to put them in school. But at least you gave them all those years to learn the right Islamic habits and behaviors and so on. And is that not better? Time wasting is another reason. For me personally, I personally believe that the school curriculum is a giant waste of time. And I'm more than happy to debate this with anyone. It is a giant waste of time that is designed to make you as foolish and as dumbed down as possible. It doesn't teach you the skills you need in your life, nor does it help you in terms of practicalities. All it is there to do is to lock you in a prison for 15 years or 10 years or whatever that is, and to make you conform to those people's ideas. Otherwise, if you actually look at the curriculum, you look at it and think, well, I can do this in 2 years. And an average child can learn this in 2 years or 3 years. What are they doing there for 10 years? Indoctrination. They're just being indoctrinated until they conform. Otherwise, do we see our kids going out of school well-rounded, well-educated, going into good jobs? No, we don't. Not really. We don't. We used to see it before when we had people going out into, sort of apprenticeships and things like that, and people graduating and doing things, getting practical work and whatever. Yeah, we used to see before. But now they study more and no less. Take anyone of my parents' age. Here's my dalil for you. I want you to take someone, for example, who now is, let's say, in their 60s, who just graduated from O levels, basic O levels, and what is now GCSE, like basic O levels. And you now take a child who has Safiyin to people. It became about values that cannot be rejected. It became about keeping people in that system longer and longer and longer. But there's no barakah. It's not producing people who are well-rounded and intelligent and well-spoken. How many kids do you see at school today that you can say that about them? That they're well-rounded, with good character, well-spoken, with, intelligent. Those are not words we generally associate with kids who graduate from school today. Generally speaking, I'm not talking about لِكُلِّ قَاعِدَةٍ إِسْتِثْنَاء. Everyone has exceptions. But I'm talking about in general, that's not what's coming out of the system. There's a lot of wasted time. There's a lot of time spent dealing with other kids' problems. Yani, why should my kids sit in class and have the teacher deal with someone else's problem for the whole lesson? There's a lot of wasted time. But even if you don't agree with me in those things, and I'm not forcing anyone to agree with me in them. And I'm not saying, maybe you say, no, I don't agree. I believe the modern education system is really good. It's better than it was before. I believe our kids are learning more. Okay, no problem. I don't have a problem. One other thing that you can have though, and one of the great advantages of homeschooling, is flexibility. That's the ability to leave things, add things, travel, change times, to make Islam a part of the curriculum. I studied history at school for a long time, and I studied elective history, and when you give it, they give you a choice to either drop it or keep it, and for a long time. I don't remember Islam being mentioned in any history lesson at all. Wallahi, it's like, those people who believe there's a big hole in the middle of the earth. Wallahi, I believe these people who teach history, it's like that. There's a big hole in the middle of the earth, which is Arabia and the lands around it. We're not allowed to learn what happened there, nor are we allowed to learn anything. Nothing ever happened there. Nobody ever lived there. It's just a big hole. You'll learn about Europe, you'll learn about China, you'll learn about Russia, you'll learn about America, you'll learn about Africa, anything, but you will not learn about that big hole in the middle of the earth. You cannot learn about Islam. I'm not talking about positive, negative, you will not learn about it at all. It's just hidden. Someone might say, okay, my school teaches it. Okay, but again, I'm talking about across the board. Isn't it nice to be able to put things into the curriculum? You don't have to leave the curriculum. Being able to put things in, being able to make Islam a part of it, being able to take exams when it's right for them. And the kids who went through SATs, they know what it's like. People came out in tears this year, they told us, from the SATs exams. And the young kids like 11 years old and this kind of age, 10 years old, 11 years old. They came out in tears. Why should I subject my child to that? Why? So that the school gets their name on a board. The things we accept as parents, I'm shocked. I'm going to put my child through misery so that this school can put their name on a board. It doesn't benefit my child anything. They don't get a certificate, they don't get anything. It's just to make things hard for them so that the school can benefit from it. Should I not as a parent be able to choose when my children take exams? I might want them to take exams every day. I might want them to take exams once a year. I might want the system where you go year by year. If you fail the year, you resit the year, for example. I might want them not to take any exams until they're older. Or I might want them to take smaller exams. And why not? Why not be flexible to be able to choose what works for your child? And this is the reality. Even if our schools were the best example of schooling ever, and even if our education system was something amazing, it still requires every child to be more or less the same. And actually, if you look at this kind of conformist culture, you actually see that this is actually getting worse in our education system. Day by day by day, it's getting worse. Before, you could choose to leave school at 16 and do practical jobs and things like that. Now, barely anyone, you have to go to this university so we can keep you for another 4 years in our system. And then you come out with a worthless piece of paper, £20,000, £30,000 worth of debt. We've got you in the system of riba. You are now ours forever. Why does that person have to go in? But as a society, we start to push everyone. Every child is the same. You're all in the same box. You're the same, you're the same, you're the same. You're not allowed to be different from each other. We tell people, we pay lip service to this idea of differences in culture. Yeah, we respect each child is an individual. But no, they're not. You're just one out of 30 people crammed in a room like sardines that has to write the same thing as everybody else, study the same thing as everybody else, say the same words as everybody else, take the same exam as everybody else, do the same courses as everybody else. We're not treating our children as individuals. Why should I not look and say, Wallahi, Zaid, you're going to be really good at this. And Ahmed, you're going to be really good at that. We're going to give you some more of that. And I really want you to learn more of this. Why not? Why can we not have a bit of flexibility to treat our children as individuals and give them what Allah has made easy for them? A higher standard of education. How many of us, if we had a lot of money, we would love to send our children to a quote-unquote posh private school, £40,000 a year, £20,000, all these big expensive schools. But wallahi, I'm not lying to you, you can get that standard of education for a fraction of the price. That is the truth. I really believe that you can get that standard of education, world-class teachers, world-class content, at a price which is not even 1% of the private school that you would like to send your child to. Even facilities, you might say, but the private school has a big playing field and a big science laboratory and everyone gets the latest computers. Even if you bought those things for your child, and you bought, they give their children iPads, even if you did, it would still be a fraction of the price for what you will pay. So why not get a higher standard of education for your child for a fraction of the price? A better relationship for your kids. And being closer to your children. spending time with them, learning with them, offering them tarbiyah, not just education. And in Islam, we make a difference between at-tarbiyah wa at-ta'lim. Tarbiyah is nurturing them, how you bring them up. Ta'lim is conveying knowledge, right? Giving knowledge to them. Maybe schools are good at giving knowledge. I don't think they're particularly good at it, but giving knowledge. But where's the tarbiyah? Where's the person who puts their arm around the child and says, come on, we have to do it like this. Building a relationship with your kids. Learning should be a lifelong habit. We want our children to learn Islam. We want them to learn Islam. We want them to be a part of Islam. We want them to be engaged in talabul ilm, seeking Islamic knowledge. But if we don't teach them the habits of lifelong learning, then in reality, they end up hating learning because learning is associated with school, and school is not a very nice experience. Independent learning. How many times do we want our children to be able to learn independently? And to be able, for example, in the future, they get a job, and on the job, they have to learn on the job. Many people find that very hard because they're not used to independent learning. They're used to sitting in a row, of 5 by 5, like this, a row like that. And you copy off the board. But actually being able to learn independently is a really good habit. And that's something which homeschooling develops. And the world is changing. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The world is changing. The educational qualifications that your children are getting today might well be obsolete in 5 years' time. Let me just give you one example. Let's just talk about AI. Everyone's talking about AI these days. Chat GPT and all that stuff. Everyone's talking about artificial intelligence. How is artificial intelligence going to change the workplace? I'm not talking about artificial intelligence taking over the world and controlling human beings and all that stuff. Now, I'm just talking about simple, like changing people's jobs. Your kids are learning things that maybe in 5 years' time are going to be obsolete. So why, or are studying in ways that maybe in 5 years' time will not benefit them. So isn't it better to have the flexibility to move quickly? For example, if we believe that the future for our kids in terms of employment is in the STEM, science and technology, engineering and mathematics and artificial intelligence and whatever, we can start teaching our kids those skills now. The school might take 10 years before they even realize it's happening. And how long before the curriculum gets updated? How long before the equipment gets updated? How long before the school gets the funding to be able to teach it? But I can teach it to my children today. I can get my children coding AI and doing stuff like that today. Why not? As a parent, if I want to, I'm not saying I'm going to, but if I want to, I could do that today. So that ability to move quickly. How much has work from home changed? I'm not just talking about AI. How about work from home? Work from home has changed the whole world. If you didn't notice that, after COVID, the world has changed. Now, at least half of the jobs are offering an option to work from home. Now, I don't know how many of you have tried work from home, but it's not easy, and it requires an ability to work independently, to learn independently, to motivate yourself and so on. Things that come naturally to children that are homeschooled. Sweep the road, you need to have a degree in sweeping the road and road management and all that stuff. They have that still. But what is the trajectory? Where is it going? Is it going more towards that, or is it going back towards where it was before? A lot of companies now are going back away from that. They're not really bothered about the degree. They want practical implementation of what you can do. They want to see that you can do the job. So I'm not against degrees, by the way, in university, and I'm not against it at all. But how many people say, Wallah, you're right, I wish my child did do something different. I don't want to do this for my kid. I want to do something different for them. Don't think that because you homeschool them, it means that they're going to be disadvantaged. Actually, if you plan it well, they could be ahead of the curve. They've got the skills that other people don't have. They've got the qualifications. And don't get me wrong, I am in massive favor of qualifications. And somebody might listen to me and say that I'm not in favor of qualifications. I am 110% in favor of qualifications. I'm just not in favor of the standard schooling system, but qualifications, yeah. Getting the exams, getting the certificates, getting industry qualifications. And if, for example, you go out and you get a qualification from an industry body, let's say, I work in IT, so, and you get a qualification from a recognized industry body that you are qualified in coding, people who designed the system in the first place, to say that you're competent in it, you'd be ahead of everybody else. Not because you get pushed into it like a sheep gets pushed into a pen. We've already mentioned that homeschooling can save a lot of money, even if you have external tutors, even if you're buying your kids equipment, you still save money. And you also get to build a Muslim learning community. We as Muslims want to be learned people. We don't like this word jahil. This word jahil for a Muslim is a horrible word, and we don't want this word to be attached to us or our children. إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. We don't want this word jahil attached to ourselves or our children. We want to be educated. We want to be bright. But to do that, we have to build a culture of learning in our community that matches our values and matches what our kids need. We have intelligent kids. We have kids that can be scientists and doctors and mathematicians and engineers, any world beating. But right now, let me ask you a question. In the Muslim world today, do you genuinely believe that on average, the Muslim world today is leading the world in knowledge and education, like secular or worldly knowledge and education? La wallah. We are at the bottom of the list. That's why we send our kids to Harvard and Yale. And do you know there was a time when the kings of England sent their children to the Muslim world to learn. There was a time when people, the aristocracy of England sent their children to go and learn in the Muslim world. And that's where the knowledge was. That's where educated, clever people went. Now we send our kids to America and the UK and we take them from the Middle East and quickly send them to the UK and America so they can learn. Why don't we build a culture and a community of learning that suits our culture and our people and our children? And that has to go hand in hand with Islam. It means it has to go, Islam and that have to go together. Because it is Islam that opens the door to that. What's the evidence? وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. Have taqwa of Allah and Allah will teach you. Allah opened the door to us to understand ظاهر الحياة الدنيا, and the knowledge of the dunya, when we needed it to serve the deen. And if you look about why Muslims became experts in mathematicians and scientists and experts in all these different fields, generally it was because there was a religious need for it. And there was something in the deen that compelled them to start, and then they reached where they reached in terms of knowledge. So we definitely need to build a culture of learning that is suitable to our kids, for our kids. And I'm not saying to anybody that this means that you have to, for example, take your children out of school and they're not everyone does what is suited to them. Are there some drawbacks? Yeah, there are some things that you have to think of. You have to think about how do you get certified, because we need some pieces of paper to say that the kids have learned something. We need to think about how our kids are going to be rounded in terms of their social interaction. To be honest, I don't see this to be an issue really. In the social side of things, to me it's not a big issue. I actually think that social interaction in school is not that helpful. And the way kids interact with each other in school, but positive interaction, for example, the masjid, the kids come in the masjid, they sit in the class, they mix with the other children. Yeah, they learn a lot. They learn a lot and it helps them. Sometimes, how do we get over issues of teamwork? But the biggest issue, I believe, the biggest obstacle for homeschooling is just parents don't believe they can do it. I think this is the biggest obstacle. Allah knows best. That parents don't believe they can do the job. They're like, how can I educate my child? And that's sad because there are lots and lots of options for you. There are lots of options. You can get the help of tutors, online programs, courses, books that you buy. There's so many options for you. We're not saying you have to be a genius in every field. So a lot of parents feel like they are not well educated enough to teach their children. But even learning with your children is something beneficial. And nobody is more qualified than you to raise your children. A lot of parents feel like they don't have time as well. Say, I don't have time for this. But there's two answers to that. First of all, you make time for what's important to you. That's the truth. You will make time for what's important to you. If your children are that valuable to you, you will find the time, inshallah, to be able to teach them from home. Also, who said you have to teach them 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock? Or 9 till 3:15? There's no rule that says you have to teach them that time. You could teach them on the weekend, you could teach them on the evening, you can be flexible. And nobody said that you have to teach them 9 o'clock. You have to start. Nobody said you have to be present for everything they learn. You can bring in others to help as well. A lot of people say from the obstacles is that kids are not well behaved at home. That's not a problem of homeschooling, that's a problem of tarbiyah, to be honest. Like the kids climb the walls at home. They run up the walls and they, scream and they jump off the furniture and everything. But that's a tarbiyah problem. That's not a problem for homeschooling, that's just a problem of teaching children where the limits are and things like that. But actually, when you de-school your children, that's actually a term, when you de-school your children, you get them used to not being at school, they learn how to behave at home. One of the first questions, and this is what I want to kind of talk about, is a lot of people ask, how do I start? All right, you convinced me, how do I start? So what I would say is that it's not always the case that you will start by just taking your kids out of school tomorrow. It's not always the case. What you might want to do is, if you're obviously scared for your children a lot and you're really worried about what they're learning or what's happening to them in school, then yes, you might have to do that. But in a lot of cases, you can transition slowly out of it. So you can say, okay, first things first, let me learn how to homeschool my kids. Let me just start with the basics. Let me just, first of all, make a decision about curriculum, for example. What curriculum am I going to teach? My recommendation is, if your children are now, today, in the British schooling system, it makes sense to base the homeschooling around the British national curriculum. If they are not, they've never been in school, then you have a choice. You can go with all different, these curricula from all over the world, and you can choose the one that works best for you and all that. But if your kids right now are doing the British national curriculum, it makes sense for you to carry on, but you're going to tweak it and adapt it to what works for you. The other advantage to using the British national curriculum is it's easy to get books and resources and videos and teachers, because everybody knows what they're doing. You're all on the same page. In the beginning, what you might like to do, a simple tip to get started as a tip, is go to the bookshop or Amazon or whatever you prefer, and all I want you to do is just go and look through the books that are for your child's age. Like the standard books for maths and English and science and all that, history and geography and whatever else, that are for your child's age, the age that your child is at. And just maybe if you can buy a few, you can buy them. If not, just have a browse through them and get an idea of the kind of things that the kids are going to be learning. Make a plan. Maybe you want to start just at holidays. Try them homeschooling over the summer holiday, for example. Just a couple of days a week. See how it goes. And slowly make that decision to actually decide about taking them away from school as much as you think it's necessary. Also, from the things that you can do is to make a decision about their religious education. Because ideally, it's not the best solution to just take your kids out of school, give them a replacement curriculum for maths, English, science, and everything, but then, where's the Islam? And that's a little bit harder because the British national curriculum, you can just go into you can go into any bookshop and buy books, and you can watch videos, and you can get courses, and you can get websites, and there's a lot of material. But when it comes to Islamic curriculum, then you start thinking, what shall I do now? So here is where you need to get together in your local masjid. Speak to the imam of the masjid, the administration of the masjid. And maybe just start by doing something similar. Going to an Islamic bookshop, reliable Islamic bookshop, and start looking through the books that they have available for your child around that age. Also, you can look at what exists online for teaching your children Islamic studies. And there are some proper Islamic studies course books as well. You can have a look at those. Ultimately, I'm not going to recommend one set of books, because you're the parent. You're the one who's going to decide what's right for your child. So you go, you take those books, you have a look through, and you decide that, this is good I think this is going to be good for them. It's a good place to start. I want to start like this. And also, because your child is going to be homeschooled, doesn't stop them going to madrasa, doesn't stop them going to tahfiz or whatever, according to what you think is good for your child. I know parents who even their children go to school some years. In some years they do, some years they don't. Ultimately, it's just about taking control and looking at what is best for your child. What is also really good is to plan out your child's journey through the schooling system. For example, looking at what kind of exam you want them to do, what kind of qualifications they might want to get, and then working out what do I need from that. For example, if it's just basic GCSEs, okay, basic GCSEs, I've got an idea of how to get those, and you work backwards. What do they need? What do they need? And you go backwards to find what's right for them at this particular age. Of course, you are going to go through those books as a parent with a Tipex pen or a pair of scissors, and take out what you don't want your children to learn. Take out what you don't feel it's appropriate. Someone might say, what about the exams? What about exams? Because exams, when it comes to exams, they're going to have to know. But that's a different matter. Actually, when it comes close to the exam, you can give them, you've got two choices. You can either give them the content and say, this is just for the exam. Or you can actually decide not to teach them and say, well, if you drop 5 marks in the exam, it's not the end of the world. Nobody minds. So you've got choices. You decided what to do. You got some basic books. Maybe you went online and printed out some worksheets. Just Google worksheets for 10-year-olds English language. You will find hundreds and thousands completely for free. Just have a look at them, delete what you don't like, take what you like, start giving them, and start learning. what your child needs. As long as your child is not just about to take exams, and they're not going to take exams this year, you've got time. You've got time to get it wrong, you've got time to get it right, you've got time to play with it, to learn how, what's a good time, and do I need a tutor or I don't need a tutor. You've got a lot of time. As long as they're not taking exams next week, you've got time to be able to decide what works for them and what doesn't. Invest in some basic materials. I would say one of the things that is worthwhile is a good quality printer. So you can print out worksheets, maybe one that has like a photocopy option so you can copy things, copy pages from books, and you can give it for them to work, for them to do. Some basic stationery, maybe a desk for them to work at home. I like the idea of the school being different from the home. Now, it doesn't mean you have to take your kids outside every day, but I really like the idea of school being different from home. And what I mean by that is school time feels different. The desk comes out, the pens come out, maybe they have to wear their good clothes, they have to sit at the desk at a certain time, and it feels different. It feels different for them. Not that it's just like, they run around and when they collapse on the sofa, you say, okay, take this book and fill in 2 pages and then bring it to me. Like, it's a proper feeling of discipline and a feeling of school. Adapt and change as much as you need. Try teaching them in the evening, in the morning, on the weekends. See what works for them, what works for you. You'll be surprised how little you need to do to keep up with the school system. Because actually what you find is the school system wastes a lot of time. So you'll be surprised you don't need to do as much as you think you need to do to be able to keep up with the school system. Don't expect to get it perfect right away. It's not like that. Sometimes people are like, they're so panicking. Like, if your child doesn't get it right away, if your child 6 months they take to get used to it, trust me, it doesn't matter. It's not even going to take even 5 marks off the exam that they take in 10 years' time or 5 years' time. It's not going to make any difference. You've got time to learn how to make it right. Make it interesting and fun. That just requires creativity. You don't have to be a teacher. A little lesson plan, like for example, today we're going to learn about history. All right, let me print a big map on the wall. Let's just stick it on the wall and let's put pins in it. Everyone loves sticking pins in things. Let's just put a big map on the wall and let's just put pins in it. Where is Mecca? Yeah, we can ask where's Mecca instead of asking where's Beijing. And we can ask them, where's Mecca? Put it on the map. Okay, how the Prophet ﷺ went to Medina, we get a bit of string, we can get another pin, put it in the map, and we've got a bit of string between them, and measure the length of the string, and we can do a bit of maths with it. It doesn't require, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out some creative, fun stuff to do. Schools are always giving kids wasteful things to do, so give them something interesting and a bit of fun that they learn from, especially when they're younger. And you don't make it boring. Make it really, really fun and interesting. Go on school trips. School trips just as a family, and you just go out, go to the library, go visit a particular place, go and whatever the kids are doing at that time, because your books tell you, and you can get books that recommend activities, YouTube videos where the teachers recommend, any very highly qualified teachers recommend activities for the child. Like, I would recommend this, I would recommend that. Experiments. Yeah, we get to have some proper fun with our chemistry experiments, not like school, where they're like, don't touch that Bunsen burner, you've got to be 5 miles away from it for safety reasons, you can't go. Yeah, we can have a bit of fun with the kids. Just buy a £20, £25 science kit from the toy shop, and you've got all your little powders in there, and you do your little experiments with them, and they have to write it up. It's not all fun. They have to write up what they did. Write it, type it, whatever you prefer. And it's just a bit of creativity. It's not about, you don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be a science teacher. You've got YouTube videos of teachers doing it. You've got booklets that show you what to do. You've got books that give you exercises and questions and answers about it. All you have to do is just supervise and choose what to give them and what not to give them. And if you're super organized, you can like plan ahead and start making lesson plans. And this week we're going to learn this, this, and this. And we're going to go out for a trip. If you're good and you do your homework and you write, you write your home, you do your schooling really nicely. At the end of the week, we're going to go out, we're going to do a trip, and we're going to ask you to write a diary about where you went. Isn't that like a good English exercise for learning English, practicing English? Even better, make them write it in Arabic. Why not? If your kids are learning Arabic, why does English have to be the media or the medium through which the child learns? Why? If they're learning Arabic already, they have to write a diary in Arabic every day of what they did and where they've been and things like that. Little things to memorize each day. Every day starts with a Quran lesson. There's hifz of the Quran. Doesn't have to be you. You can have someone come to the house. You can go to the masjid. You've got complete flexibility. There's no rule about what you should or shouldn't do. Just you take responsibility as a parent and look at what's good for your child and make some decisions. Make some lesson plans. What shall I do each day? I'm just checking. Yeah, we're okay, 6:30. So just make some lesson plans. What can we do today? Get some materials. All kinds of fun stuff. And recently, in terms of arts and crafts and things, obviously we don't get the kids to paint pictures of things and whatever that are not permissible. Like in one thing, for example, recently we started making like models of things. Like a 3D model of a car, for example, or a model of a house or something like that. Requires a lot of thought, requires some maths in there because it's practical, right? And I'm agreeing, if they go to the shop, can they like calculate the shopping bill and work out what the change should be and like properly, in real, not like on the paper. And so, for example, if they're building a little model of something, they have to do scaling, they have to measure the size of the model and the size of the thing in real life, and they have to do the maths for it, and it's practical things, things you learn. And it's just a bit of fun at the end of the day, but they can learn from it. Take advantage of teachers, because you have many people in our community who are teachers, mashallah, in schools, Islamic schools, state schools. They can also help you. Like I'm thinking of doing a lesson plan for my kids. I was thinking I'm struggling a bit with maths. I'm finding they're a little bit slow in it. How can I improve? They can give you some tips. Even if they can't give you some tips, you've got YouTube channels where there's loads. I'm not telling your kids to watch them, but you select what you need for them, prepare it, and get it going. Some might say it sounds like a lot of time for me. If it sounds like too much time, get them for you, you're struggling. Look at getting a tutor who, online, you choose, you set the rules about what they can teach and what they can't teach. Look at getting an online tutor. Look at your local masjid. Look at getting together with a few brothers. I know you have the Ofsted rules. You have to be a bit careful, because if too many people get together, you become a school by law. And then all the problems come again. You have to get inspected and you have to have all this, junk in the curriculum and all that stuff. But if it's a couple of people come together for an hour a day, like a homeschool club, it doesn't come under any less than 2 hours a day, and it's just a homeschool club where you come together and like maybe do homework together, or the masjid arranges a little club for people to come who homeschool their kids, and maybe they could arrange a tutor who comes, just teaches an hour a day. Why not? Don't wear your children out. Me personally, I'm not in favor of like this really intensive like education for the kids where they're just worn out. Any Islamic education is more important anyway, and it's going to give them a lot of benefits. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't listen to people who try to discourage you. You don't know how to do it, your kid's not going to do well, they're not going to do well at school. First of all, it's not about doing well at school. To start with, it's about saving the person's, giving them the right tarbiyah and Islamic upbringing. It's not necessarily about being, doing well at school to begin with. But actually, in the end, most homeschooled kids do far, far better on average than the average children who go to regular schools, whether state schools or private schools. Generally, homeschool kids do very, very well. What about really young kids? So like learning through play. Just keep an idea of what the child should learn at each age. But if I was to give you tips for you really young children, I would say get Arabic started from the beginning. Because one of the things that you realize is if a child learns a language at a very young age, it's very easy for them to learn fluency, and it's very easy for them to be very, very competent in the language. Whereas if a child learns a language later on, like for example, you say, I'm going to do your GCSEs and then learn Arabic, for example, it's very hard for them to achieve a high level of fluency. It's very hard. Some might not, but it's not easy to do. But if you have, like, for example, a child, like maybe you're just looking at a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, you can just give them Arabic and Quran. By 7 years old, 8 years old, they finish the Quran. Yes, it's possible. Certainly by 10 years old, they finish the Quran, they're fluent in Arabic, and then they start learning their secular studies or their worldly studies. If you look at other countries, I'm talking about in Europe, not every country starts children's education at 5 years old. Like we think, oh, my child will be behind because, at 5 years old, they should go to reception and then year 1 and year 2. There are many countries around the world, including some of the best countries in the academic league tables, that don't start teaching children until the children are 8 years old or 9 years old. There are countries like that. I don't know if it's still the case, but in Scandinavia, some of them like that. Child starts school at 8 or whatever, or 9. So there's no need for, there's nothing that says that your child has to start learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G at 4 years old, for example. Let them learn Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha, for example. And let them learn, and we know some of the homeschool children who Arabic is their first language. Their parents don't speak it. And for them, Arabic is their main language that they work in. They write in it, they study in it, and so on. I read a really nice research paper by a doctor. I don't know whether he's a doctor of education or someone who's well educated. He wrote a research paper as to whether the English language has helped in developing worldly knowledge in the Muslim world, particularly medicine. Has the English language helped the Muslim world in education? And his conclusion, and he brought a paper and he presented his research, is that we did far better when we were learning with Arabic as our language, when we were learning worldly studies with Arabic as our language, we did far better than when it was English. And so there's no harm. The young child, developing Arabic, at least Arabic should be the same as English. If not, Arabic is even better than English. Arabic becomes their main study language. And that's not difficult. Someone might say, but I don't speak it. But then,
I'm sorry about it. You make me angry because you're trying to send a message that Arabic is more superior than English. Then why not speaking in Arabic yourself?
Wallahi, Arabic is more superior than English. Wallahi. Okay, anyways, Habib, ta'addab, barakallahu feek.
Yeah, I'm a tutor, I do home tuitions. Majority of people in Preston are from different countries and don't speak well. They can't afford homeschooling, and when it comes to GCSE, they have to do 20, example in physics, they have to do 22 practicals. How the hell they will do practicals at home?
Can you not use, please, bad language in the masjid, first of all?
No, I don't care.
Okay, Uncle, Jazakallah khair. Barakallahu feek. We'll ask you to leave, Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, I do apologize, sorry about that, but some of the messages you're sending out is double standard.
No problem.
Speak out.
No problem. At the end, inshallah, maybe you can have your time to speak, inshallah. Back to the topic of Arabic, of the Arabic language. We have practical examples. From the practical examples that we have, is many of us as children grew up speaking a different language at home. How many people grew up, for example, speaking Urdu at home, Punjabi at home, Bengali at home, and then they went to school and they learned English as their main study language and they became fluent in it. So why can we not have, why could we not have that as Arabic? The other way around, yani we have English at home with the parents speak English, and then we learn Arabic as our formal study language. That's how the Muslim Ummah used to be, right? Islam spread to all over the world, it spread to the Far East. Those people at home, when they were brought up, their language was the language of their parents. They spoke the different languages, Persian and all of these different languages. But when they went to school and they did their formal education, they did it in the Arabic language. And I'm not, by the way, wallahi, I'm not, with all sincerity, I'm not saying that this is obligatory upon anybody. But just encouragement that there's no reason why not. These options are in front of you. You as a parent, choose what's good for your child. You as a parent, choose what's good for your child. And there are options, many things. And in fact, you do find obstacles along the way. And you do find things that you think, oh, how do I get over that? But you'll be really surprised how you find ways to overcome those obstacles. So at nursery level, learning through play, learning what should your child learn at each basic age, and at each level in the child's learning, and also looking at integrating Islamic studies and Arabic from a very early age at nursery level. At primary school level, you can do a lot there's some really great websites that give worksheets and activities and lesson plans that are used by teachers. Teachers in primary schools upload their lesson plans for other teachers to buy and download. So you as a parent can also download those lesson plans and learn from them. And you will sometimes come across things. You will sometimes come across obstacles, no doubt. You will sometimes come across obstacles that you think, for example, how do I get over that? Because they're telling me that I need to do this or I need to have this, which I don't have available to me. But that's part of the innovation, that you find ways around it. For example, I've done all kinds of things, like from speaking to an Islamic school and saying, can my kids go in and use the equipment in your lab? Yeah, okay. Some of them say no. Some of them have, there are other options available. So a person just looks their ways around it. At secondary level, when the kids start to go to a more formal level, the issue now is you're going to have formal exams that are coming there. You're going to have proper exams that are coming there. And those exams have conditions. Agreed? And you're going to do exams, and the exams have conditions. So now you have a little bit less flexibility because you're defined by the exam. But what you do have the flexibility in is the exam board. And not all of the exam boards are the same. So for example, in science, if you were to take IGCSE, for example, you don't need to do a physical, for example, practical as an example. You have to know it in theory. You can watch it on video or whatever. You have to be able to describe it in writing, but you don't have to demonstrate it in practical. So someone might say, for example, in some things you have to do coursework, for example. And they might say, that's hard for me. Actually, sometimes you can find teachers who do online coursework. You can hire them and they do coursework for you, like they mark your coursework for you. But if it's a problem, you can always find an exam board that doesn't have a coursework component to it. And also, not even that, choosing the exam board that suits your child's learning style. They're not all the same. For example, in English language, there's a wide variety of texts that they teach in different exam boards. Some of them might be more suited, some of them less suited. In English literature, there's a whole different, some of them are teaching completely different things. So you might look at it and say, I actually, for English literature with my kids, when they did English literature, I actually got all the exam boards we had the choice for, got all the texts, and we just flicked through them and said, all right, what do you think about this one? Some of them give a choice, and you'll have a choice of 2 or 3, and the other one's got 2 or 3, and the other one's got 2 or 3, and you kind of flick through them and say, what about this style of question? Some of them, the question styles are different. And in some of them, the question styles are very different. And some of them, they ask a particular style, and others, they put more emphasis on another. So you look at what's good for your children and what you think will benefit them and what you think is going to help them going forward from that. Obviously, you do your usual revision stuff. You've got your past papers and whatever. And by all means, if you feel that your child needs help in a certain area, that's why we have tutors and people that you bring in and people who help you. It's not about replacing them. It's about you being in control. And the Islamic side of things is even more exciting because we know the path to seeking Islamic knowledge. There's a proper path that you take. There are texts you memorize. There are things you learn. There are subjects you study. And if our children start that at a very, very young age, insha'Allah ta'ala, if our children start that program at a young age, it doesn't take long before all the dreams we had for ourselves about learning this book and studying this and finishing Bukhari and Muslim and everything, our child could have done that. Our child could have done that even by the time that they, for example, graduate from GCSE level or A level or whatever it might be. And then the options are there. So this is just, like I said, for me, it's about flexibility. It's not about forcing it upon people. It's about people choosing what's right for their child and always to a different option for study. Now, a way around, some of them are homeschooling their children. Some of them are just doing Islamic homeschooling. Their kids go to regular schools and they are doing Islamic homeschooling. It's good to take questions from people, inshallah. And people, I believe there is a QR code or there is a link that people who are watching online, and they could ask some questions about things, inshallah. And if we know the answer, we'll give them. And if we don't know the answer, then Allah Azza wa Jal knows best.